pickup truck came for me at the base of the access road, precisely when they said it would. Not a minute early, not a minute late. That should have been my first clue. The driver, an older man with a face like old leather and eyes that didn't linger on anything, grunted a greeting that was more of an exhale. I threw my duffel in the bed and climbed in. We didn't speak for the 27 minutes it took to climb the switchbacks to the observatory. The silence was fine by me. I was here for the silence and for the money. 12 months of nights and my brother's medical debt, a cold, hard number I'd memorized, would be erased. The view was postcard perfect, pines giving way to jagged rock, the sky a deepening blue. It looked peaceful. I knew better than to trust that. The facility was a cluster of low, concrete buildings clinging to the peak, dominated by the main dome. It was older than I expected, a relic of the 60s with a skin of more recent repairs. The air was thin and carried a bite that promised a deep cold after sundown. The driver, who I learned was named Dale, handed me off to a woman in a heavy parka, the supervisor. Her name was Lena. She had the same measured, economical movement as Dale, like someone conserving energy for a long haul. Her office was warm, smelling of stale coffee and machine oil. She slid a contract across the desk without ceremony. The pay was even better than advertised. I signed before she could change her mind. Then she slid a second piece of paper, laminated and stark white. "This," she said, her voice flat, "is your job description. Read it, memorize it. Your predecessor didn't." I looked at the heading. Night Shift Operational Protocol, McAllister Peak Observatory. It was a list, numbered, precise. 1. Your shift begins at official sunset and ends at official sunrise. These times are posted daily in the control room. You will be in the main control building, with the outer door locked 5 minutes before shift start. You will not exit the main building until 5 minutes after shift end. 2. A complete inventory of the supply locker must be conducted at the beginning of each shift. The inventory list is fixed. There must be 12 road flares, 6 gallons of distilled water, 4 sealed packs of batteries, size D, 2 emergency blankets, and 1 fire axe. If any item is missing, you will radio the day supervisor immediately at shift start. Do not proceed if the axe is missing. 3. The radio must be on channel 4 at all times. A check-in call to the regional dispatch in Grand Junction is required at 10 minutes past the hour, every hour, without exception. You will say, "McAllister Peak, all secure." They will respond, "Acknowledged, McAllister." Any variance in this exchange from either party signifies a communication breach. In the event of a breach, you will follow Protocol 7. 4. The perimeter lights are to be activated at full dark and remain on until dawn. Should any single light extinguish on its own, do not attempt to repair it. Note its location and avoid that sector of the windows for the remainder of the night. 5. Between the hours of 1 a.m. and 3 a.m., you will make a visual patrol of the interior corridor that circles the main dome. Walk the corridor once, completing the circuit in no less than 4 minutes and no more than 6. Do not stop. Do not look into the dome access hatch window during this patrol. 6. The service door to the lower equipment vault, marked HVAC and utilities, is to remain locked at all times. You will hear knocking from this door. Do not acknowledge it in any way. If the knocking follows a pattern of 3 sets of 2, knock, 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 knock. Immediately put on the headphones located at the main desk and play the provided cassette tape until the knocking ceases. 7. Under no circumstances are you to use the south-facing restroom between midnight and 4 a.m. The north-facing restroom is to be used for all needs. If the north restroom door is found locked from the inside, wait exactly 10 minutes. If it remains locked, return to the control room and lock its door. Do not attempt to force the door. 8. You may see figures outside near the tree line. They may resemble hikers or maintenance personnel. They will not approach the building. If a figure approaches within 50 yards of the outer perimeter fence, turn off all interior lights except for the red duty lamp above the main console for a period of 15 minutes. 9. Animals are infrequent at this elevation. If you see a deer, owl, or other large fauna, note its movement. If it moves backward or in a repeated circular path, avert your eyes until you can no longer see it in your periphery. 10. A journal is kept in the top right desk drawer. You are required to log any anomalies, however minor, with the exact time. You are not required to read previous entries. 11. At exactly 20 minutes before sunrise, you will deactivate the perimeter lights manually from the main console. Wait 60 seconds, then reactivate them. This is a system check. They should all power on. If they do, proceed to shut them down for the day as per the sunrise schedule. If any fail to reactivate, note it in the journal and do not attempt repair. 12. Your personal effects, including any food, are to be kept in the provided metal locker. Do not leave any personal item, especially anything reflective, watches, phones, cutlery, on the work surfaces overnight. 13. If you hear your name spoken from anywhere but the radio, you are to ignore it. If it is spoken twice, you are to put your hands over your ears and hum continuously until you hear the shift change alarm at sunrise. 14. The rules are for your safety. Compliance is not optional. I read it twice. The legalistic tone was at odds with the content. Knocking, figures by the tree line. Is this some kind of hazing ritual? Lena's expression didn't change. The last night operator, Carl, thought it was hazing. He took a road flare outside at 2:15 in the morning to investigate a faulty perimeter light on the south side. We found the flare unused in the snow. We never found Carl. The rules are the job. You can quit now, forfeit the sign-on bonus, or you can do the job. I thought of the debt, a chain around my neck. I thought of Carl, who probably laughed at the list. I didn't laugh. I'll do the job. Lena nodded, a short, sharp motion. Dale will show you the layout. Shift starts in 40 minutes. The tour was brisk. Main control room with its banks of outdated monitors, tracking telescope functions, weather and seismic activity. Mostly for show, Dale said. The science was automated. We were maintenance, security, and system monitors. The corridor, the 2 restrooms, the supply locker where I counted everything. 12, 6, 4, 2, 1. The axe was heavy, cold iron. The service door to the lower vault was unremarkable. Heavy steel with a large, old-fashioned lock. Dale rapped his knuckles on it twice, hard. Remember, you hear that, you don't hear that. He showed me the headphones and the cassette player, a relic next to the sleek computers. The tape was unlabeled. He left as the sun dipped below the distant peaks, casting long, distorted shadows from the pines. I locked the outer door. I was alone. For the first hour, it was just the hum of servers and the soft hiss of the radio. I performed the first radio check at 10 past the hour. McAllister Peak, all secure. Acknowledged, McAllister. The dispatcher's voice was bored, staticky, normal. I started a pot of coffee, the mundane act, a comfort. At 1 a.m., I began the interior patrol. The corridor was a dimly lit, windowless loop around the great dome. My footsteps echoed. It took me 4 minutes and 30 seconds. I kept my eyes forward, away from the small, reinforced glass window that looked into the dome itself. As I passed it, my skin prickled. I didn't look. Back in the control room, the night settled in. The vast blackness outside the windows was absolute, the perimeter lights casting small pools of yellow on the rocky ground. At 1:47, I saw movement, a shape near the distant tree line. A deer, maybe. It stood silhouetted against the starlit snow. It took a step, then another. It was walking in a tight, perfect circle, tracing the same path over and over. Rule 9. I turned my head away, focusing on a weather readout. When I glanced back 5 minutes later, it was gone. My heart was thumping a little harder. Coincidence. A disoriented animal. At 2:20, the knocking started. It came from the service door. A dull, metallic thud thud. A pause. Thud thud. Not frantic, not angry. Insistent. Patient. I froze, the coffee mug halfway to my lips. The rules were in my head, typed in Lena's blunt font. Do not acknowledge it in any way. I sat perfectly still, my muscles tense. The knocking repeated. 2 knocks, a pause, 2 knocks. It wasn't following the pattern of 3 sets of 2. Not yet. I counted. 2, 2, 2. It stayed at 2 and 2. It lasted for 7 minutes. Then it stopped as abruptly as it had begun. The silence that followed was heavier than before. I realized I'd been holding my breath. I exhaled, my hands trembling slightly. I logged it in the journal. Chat Quintil, knocking at service door. 2 knock pattern. Did not acknowledge. The next hour passed without incident. The radio checks were normal. At 3:15, I needed to use the restroom. I walked to the north one. The door was locked. A chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning went through me. I checked my watch. Rule 7. Wait exactly 10 minutes. I stood there, listening. No sound from within. The knob didn't rattle. After 10 agonizing minutes, the door was still locked. I turned and walked back to the control room. My steps hurried. I locked the door behind me, as instructed. I watched the clock. At 3:40, I ventured back. The north restroom door was now slightly ajar. The light was off inside. I didn't investigate. I used the facility quickly, the hair on my neck standing up. By the time the first hint of gray touched the eastern sky, I was exhausted, wound tight from a night of silent vigilance. At 20 minutes to sunrise, I followed Rule 11. I flipped the switch for the perimeter lights. They died, plunging the world outside into profound blackness. I counted 60 seconds, my eyes on the digital clock. I flipped the switch again. 7 pools of light bloomed against the rocky ground. The 8th, the southernmost light, remained dark. A perfect circle of blackness where there should have been light. I noted it in the journal, my handwriting steady. Ishvi to 10, south perimeter light, failed reactivation test. Dale's truck arrived 5 minutes after sunrise. He came in, wordlessly took the journal, read my entries. He gave a grunt that might have been approval. South light's been finicky. We'll get to it. He didn't mention the restroom, the knocking, the deer. As I gathered my things, he said, Lena wants to see you before you go to the cabin. In her office, she slid another laminated sheet to me. It was shorter. Amendments, she said. After your first week, provided you're still here. The list had 6 new rules. 1. The interior patrol between 1 and 3 a.m. is now to be conducted with a handheld radio tuned to Channel 4. volume at level 2. If the radio static rises to a crescendo at any point during the patrol, you will stop walking, close your eyes, and count backwards from 100. Resume patrol only when the static returns to baseline. 2. The supply locker inventory is now to be conducted twice, at shift start and at 3 a.m. precisely. Pay particular attention to the road. Flares, count them individually. 3. If the north restroom door is found locked, the 10-minute wait is still in effect. However, if upon return the door is open but the light inside is now on, having been off previously, do not enter. Use the south restroom, regardless of the time, but do not look at the mirror above the sink. 4. The figure near the tree line may now be accompanied by a second figure. The 50-yard rule still applies. If they both approach, the interior light blackout procedure extends to 30 minutes. 5. The cassette tape for the service door knocking protocol may, on rare occasions, play a voice message at the end of the static. Do not listen to it. Rewind the tape immediately. 6. You are no longer to log the exact time of anomalies involving animal behavior. Log only the occurrence. Why the changes? I asked. The rules are living, Lena said, her eyes tired. The job is observation and response. You observed. Now we respond. Get some sleep. The next week was a grinding tutorial in hypervigilance. I fell into the rhythm. Inventory at sunset. 12, 6, 4, 2, 1. Inventory at 3 a.m. 12, 6, 4, 2, 1. Radio checks on the hour, 10 minutes past. The patrols, now with the radio hissing in my hand. One night, the static did rise, a wave of white noise that filled the corridor, seemingly coming from the walls themselves. I stopped, closed my eyes, and count backwards from 100. My voice was a shaky whisper. At 72, the static faded back to its usual gentle sigh. I finished the patrol, my heart a drum against my ribs. The south perimeter lights stayed dark. I avoided the south windows after 1 a.m., as per the original rules. I saw the figures twice more, always 2 now, standing just at the edge of the tree line. They never moved. They just stood, darker patches against the dark. They never approached within 50 yards. Then, on the 10th night, the dispatcher's voice was wrong. It was at the check-in just after 2 a.m. McAllister Peak, all secure, I said. The voice that came back was the same male voice, but the cadence was off, slower. Acknowledged, McAllister. A pause between the words, a communication breach. Protocol 7. I pulled the binder from under the desk. Protocol 7 was brief. In the event of a radio breach, secure primary communications. Switch to backup radio on channel 9. Broadcast the all clear every 15 minutes until primary channel verification at sunrise. I shut down the main radio, feeling isolated. The backup unit was smaller, older. I tuned it to channel 9. The silence was deep. At 2:15, I broadcast, McAllister on backup, status nominal. No reply was expected or received. At 2:30, the knocking began again. This time, it was different. Knock, knock. Knock, knock. Knock, knock. A pause. Then the pattern repeated. 3 sets of 2. I moved to the cassette player, fumbling with the headphones. I put them on, my hands cold. I hit play. A blast of static made me wince. Then a low, droning tone, like a broken pipe organ. It went on for a full minute. Then a voice, distant and muffled, buried in the noise. It was my brother's voice. Hey, it's me. Can you come down here? I'm stuck. The door is... My blood turned to ice. Rule 5 of the amendments. Do not listen to it. I lunged for the player, hitting the rewind button. The voice garbled backwards into the tone, then the static. I let it play for another 30 seconds, then stopped it. The knocking had ceased. I was shaking. It was a trick. A recording, or my mind, stressed and sleep-deprived, playing tricks. It had to be. But I knew my brother's voice, the particular shade of worry in it. I logged the event, omitting the content of the voice, simply noting the breach and the successful application of Protocol 7. Dawn was a mercy. When Lena came in, I showed her the log. She read it, her lips a thin line. You rewound the tape. Immediately. Good. She didn't offer more. She didn't need to. The cost of listening was in the tension around her eyes. The nights began to blur into a cycle of ritual and watchfulness. I was a machine of compliance. Count the flares. Walk the patrol. Ignore the knocks. Avert your eyes. The fatigue was a constant companion, a woolly weight behind my eyes. The world outside the windows felt less like a landscape and more like a pressure, waiting for a lapse. I met the other night operator, a guy named Eli, during a shift overlap. He worked the smaller solar observation outpost, a half a mile down the ridge, connected by a secure line and a shared radio channel. We were never to visit each other's posts on shift, but we could talk. His voice on the radio was a lifeline, a touch of the human. You get used to the weird stuff, he said one night during a quiet period. Just stick to the book. The book is your Bible. Did you know Carl? I asked. A long silence. Yeah, he was a friend. Thought the rules were for weak minds. Another pause. The mind is the first thing it goes for. Makes you see things, hear things you want more than anything. Makes you think you can help. Before I could ask what it was, Eli signed off for his patrol. A major storm system was moving in, forecast to hit in 2 days. Lena briefed us together. This isn't a normal storm, she said. The lines will go down, the generators will kick in, but the interference, it's significant. You'll both follow the emergency protocols. She gave us each a new sheet, only 3 rules, but they were exhaustive. 1. Upon confirmed loss of primary power, you will lock down your respective stations. This means physically bolting the main outer door and the interior door to the control room. You will then disconnect all non-essential monitoring equipment. Only the backup radio, the perimeter light console, and 1 interior red lamp are to remain on generator power. 2. A complete blackout of all exterior and interior white lights is to be maintained for the duration of the storm. Only the red lamps are permitted. You will conduct hourly integrity checks of the door seals using the provided gauge. The pressure reading must not drop below 950 millibars. If it drops, apply the secondary sealant tape from the kit. Record each reading. 3. Radio contact with the other station is to be maintained on channel 9, but only on the half hour, for no more than 60 seconds. The exchange is as follows. Station A, pressure check. Station B, holding. Any other communication is forbidden. If contact is lost, do not attempt to re-establish. Assume the other station is following protocol. Your priority is the integrity of your own seal. The storm arrived not with a howl, but with a deep, settling quiet as the snow began to fall thickly, swallowing the world. By midnight, the wind rose, shrieking around the dome. The lights flickered at 12:46, then died. The generators rumbled to life below, and the red emergency lamps cast the control room in a hellish, monochrome glow. I followed the lockdown procedure, my movements robotic. Bolt the outer door, bolt the inner door. Disconnect the monitors. The silence, punctuated by the groan of the wind, was immense. I did the first integrity check. 987 millibars, solid. At 12:30, I radioed Eli. Pressure check. Holding, his voice came back, tight. The connection was already fuzzy with static. The next hour was the longest of my life. The storm seemed personal, a brute force testing the seams of the building. At 1:30, the radio exchange was the same. Pressure check. Holding. But Eli's voice sounded strained. At 2 a.m., during the silence, I heard a new sound. Not the wind, a scraping, like many hands dragging along the concrete outer walls. It circled the building. I could track it by sound. It would start at the west wall, move south, east, north, and back to west. A perfect circuit. It never touched the door, never tried the windows. Just that slow, relentless scraping. My integrity check at 2 a.m. showed a drop. 922 millibars. Still within tolerance, but a drop. I recorded it. The scraping continued its rounds. At 2:30, I keyed the radio. Pressure check. Silence. Pressure check. Solar post. More silence, filled only by the storm and the scraping. Assume the other station is following protocol. The rule was clear. But Eli was my only tether. At 2:45, I broke protocol. I called again. Eli, you there? A burst of static, then a voice. It was Eli, but wrong. Gasping, wet. The door, the seal. It's inside the airlock. I can see its shadow. It looks like Carl. Eli, follow the protocols. Your seal gauge, what's the reading? It's learning. It talks in our voices. The transmission dissolved into a scream, abruptly cut off. Then a new voice, calm, clear, and perfectly mimicking Lena. Station B integrity compromised, initiating containment. Click. I stared at the radio. The scraping on the walls had stopped. The sudden quiet was worse. Then a knock on the main outer door. Not the service door. The main entrance. A polite 3-knock pattern. Tap, tap, tap. I froze. This wasn't in the rules. There was no rule for a knock on the main door during a blackout. The knock came again. Tap, tap, tap. Then Eli's voice, pleading, perfectly real. Please, it's me. I made it. Let me in. It's coming up the ridge. It was a lie. It had to be. The half-mile ridge in this blizzard? Impossible. It was using his voice, the fear in it, the need for sanctuary. My hand went to the bolt. My brother's debt, Eli's friendship, the human urge to help was a physical pain. I took a step toward the door. Then I saw the seal gauge. The needle was falling. 950, 9:45, 940. It was dropping fast. Rule 2. Your priority is the integrity of your own seal. Eli's voice became a sob. Don't leave me out here. I turned my back on the door. I grabbed the secondary sealing kit. The gauge read 930. I tore the tape, my hands fumbling, and began applying it along the seam of the inner control room door, where the pressure was leaking. The tape was a thick, rubbery compound. I worked methodically, top seam, sides, bottom. The sobbing outside turned to anger, then to a sound that was neither a voice nor the wind, a kind of resonant buzzing that vibrated in my teeth. I finished the seal. I checked the gauge. It steadied at 925, then slowly began to creep back up. 930, 935. The secondary seal was holding. The buzzing faded. For the next 3 hours, there was only the storm. I performed my checks, recorded the numbers. The radio remained silent. At 5:30, the wind began to subside. At 6:15, the generators coughed, and the main power flickered back on. The white lights were blinding. The storm had left 3 feet of pristine, drifted snow. Dale arrived on a snowcat at 7. He found me still in the control room, the sealant tape in my hand. the log filled with pressure readings. He listened as I recounted the night, the radio calls, the voice, the knock. He didn't interrupt. "Eli," I finally asked. Dale's face was grim. "We found him in his station. The inner door was open. The seal was broken from the inside. He wasn't all there was to find. Parts were missing." He saw my expression. "You followed the protocols. You sealed your door. That's the job. You can't save anyone who breaks the seal." Lena came up later. There were no condolences. There was an updated amendments list, 2 new rules. 1. Following any extreme weather event, all patrols are suspended for 48 hours. 2. Voices imitating known personnel are to be classified as a Category 3 anomaly. No direct response is permitted. Increase interior lighting to maximum for 30 minutes upon detection. The next few nights were quiet, haunted by Eli's final transmission. I followed the new rules. I counted flares. I avoided windows. The work was the only thing holding me together. I began to read the old journal entries, not out of curiosity, but as a tactical study. I saw Carl's entries, growing increasingly dismissive. Heard the knocking, probably just pipes. Saw the deer, cool. His final entry, the night he vanished. South lights out again, going to take a flare and check the junction box, back in 10. He never logged again. Other names appeared, going back decades. Brief clinical notes of anomalies. Every few years, an entry would stop abruptly. Then a new handwriting would begin. One entry from someone named Reyes, 15 years prior, chilled me. 0300, figure at tree line. Now appears to be wearing my missing jacket. The logo is mirrored. Adhered to Rule 8. I closed the journal. I understood now. The rules weren't superstition. They were a manual for navigating a hostile ecosystem. The mountain, or something on it, was a predator that used psychology as its primary weapon. It learned. It adapted. The rules adapted in response. We were the caretakers of a silent, cold war. My last month was the hardest. The fatigue was bone deep, a permanent static in my mind. I saw things in the corner of my eye that vanished when I turned. I heard whispers in the ventilator hum. But I complied. I was a perfect machine of observance. I didn't hesitate. I didn't wonder. I acted. On my final night, everything was calm. A clear, cold sky full of indifferent stars. I performed the rituals for the last time. The inventory, the patrol, the radio checks. At 3 a.m., as I passed the dome access window, I didn't just avert my eyes. I held a hand up to block my periphery as I'd trained myself. In the black glass of a disconnected monitor, I saw the faint, distorted reflection of the window behind me. For a fraction of a second, I saw a pale shape pressed against it from the other side, a smudge of something looking out. I didn't turn. I finished the patrol. At sunrise, I performed the light test. All 8 perimeter lights ignited, including the south one that had been dark for months. It burned with a fierce, white intensity. Dale arrived. Lena was with him. She took the journal, looked over my flawless logs. She handed me a final paycheck, a sum that finally, completely, erased the number in my mind. "You did the job," she said. It was the highest praise she could give. "Who's next?" I asked. "A kid from Boulder, astronomy grad student, thinks he wants the solitude to write his thesis." She almost smiled. "He'll learn." I packed my duffel. I took nothing from the locker but my own things. As I was leaving, I stopped. I went to the desk, took a fresh sheet of paper from the drawer, and began to write. Not a log. A clean copy of the rules. the core rules, the amendments, the emergency protocols. I organized them, clarified a point of ambiguity about the tape player based on my experience, noted the critical importance of the seal gauge during blackouts. I wrote in the same precise operational language I had learned to think in. I left it on the desk next to the journal, a baton pass, a map for the next person lost in the dark. Dale drove me down the mountain. I didn't look back at the observatory, a stark silhouette against the morning sky. I looked at my hands, steady on my knees. They were the hands of someone who could wait exactly 10 minutes by a locked door, who could ignore a pleading voice in a storm, who knew the exact count of road flares in a metal locker. The world at the base of the mountain seemed too loud, too bright, too soft. I knew I would wake up at 1 a.m. for months to come, listening for a pattern in the silence. I knew I would count my steps in parking lots, avoid certain reflections after dark. The rules didn't leave you. You took them with you, a cage that had become a skeleton. I had survived. The mountain kept its mysteries, and in a quiet office at the peak, a new list waited for the next shift, ready to teach a new person the geometry of fear.